Hey guys, Mosa here, and today I'm bringing you my NFL Week 11 power rankings. Now, without a further ado, let's get started. Now, let's kick it off with the Las Vegas Raiders dead last at 32. They just came off their bye, and they're going to face up against the Dolphins in Miami this Sunday. They are 2-7. They got their break, but realistically, even though there are a few teams that might deserve being last place over the Raiders, I still think they're the worst team in the NFL right now at this point. But it could change at any moment. Maybe they beat the Dolphins, who knows. But in my opinion, this team is going to be a top 5 draft pick in the 2025 NFL draft, no matter what. Now, moving on to the New York Giants. We got the Giants at 2-8. They're going into their bye week, and they just came off a loss in Germany to the Carolina Panthers. This is a bad season for the New York Giants. They are definitely not making the playoffs. That is 100% given. But in the end, will this team be the dead last in the division? That is the biggest question, because you've got to understand the Cowboys are the other team that might be in dead last in the NFC East. And to be honest, this Giants team might just be a little bit better than the Cowboys. But it all really comes down to how they perform from this point forward. I still believe they're going to be a top 5, maybe top 7 draft position, somewhere around there. But there is no way that they make it out of the top 10 in the NFL draft. There's no doubt in my mind that this team will probably be picking someone to either protect Daniel Jones in the draft or someone to replace him. Now, on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, also at 2-8. They're going up against the Lions on Sunday in Detroit, and they just came off a loss to the Vikings. Now, their loss to the Vikings was not as bad as I thought it would be, but to be honest, it's still a loss, and in the end of the day, they are also going to be a top 5, top 10 draft pick team. So there is no doubt in my mind that just like the other two, they are not going to be a top contender for the playoffs, let alone even make it like squeezing into the playoffs. Like maybe we ended up in 8th. We're not in the playoffs. But there's also the opportunity for them to be dead last. But I highly doubt they'd be dead last. I think Carolina or maybe Las Vegas or New York would be that number 1 overall pick. But in the end, the Jacksonville Jaguars still need to improve their team. Now, moving on to the Chicago Bears at 4-5, took an L from the Patriots and will be going up against the Packers in Green Bay. This is honestly the worst team out of them all in the NFC North. There's no doubt in my mind. They're not going to be a horrific team this year. I expect them to be middle of the pack, but definitely not a playoff contender. And yeah, this is going to be a horrific season. Not to the extent that, he's going to have an RG3 type rookie season or something like that, where he potentially comes back and does some great stuff and gets injured or something like that. Or an even Jamarcus Russell type career. I think this guy's going to be mostly Caleb Williams, the quarterback that's going to have a tough first year, and then they're going to hire a new coach, which will make him better. I think that's what will happen, but to be honest, it's still the Bears, and anything could really happen. Now, on to the Carolina Panthers, 3-7, coming into their bye week, and they just beat the New York Giants on the International Series game in Germany, in Munich. Now, that was an impressive win, back-to-back wins for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm still thinking they're a top 5 draft pick. They're definitely not one of the good teams. And this is most likely both these last 2 games outliers. Like, you got New Orleans, who they beat, and then they fired their head coach. At this point, I don't know if Brian Dable has been fired, but the Giants, also not a good team. And going up against the Panthers, I think those are 2 winnable games, obviously, for the Panthers. Although I did say that New Orleans was going to beat, and same goes for the Giants. But in the end, this team is just not good enough to make the playoffs, let alone the middle of the pack of the NFL season. Now, on to the New Orleans Saints at 3-7, going up against Cleveland this Sunday And they just beat the Falcons after getting a new head coach. They're firing Dennis Allen. So, yeah, I'm really excited of what the future, not with this head coach, is not going to be coach that they'll hire for the entire year next year. But I'm very excited for what the New Orleans Saints are going to do in the future. Like, honestly, Derek Carr, maybe not the quarterback. Maybe you get Spencer Rattler, a good head coach that will fit his system. I don't know, really. But in the end, I think that the New Orleans Saints are realistically just a few pieces away on offense from potentially, and maybe a few on the defensive line and maybe secondary, but they're only a few pieces away from being a playoff contender again. Now we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 4-6 going into their bye week and just came off a loss to the San Francisco 49ers. Now when it comes to the 49ers, obviously a good team. Tampa, sort of good team, but now I'm more in the favor of anyone winning that division at that point, because to be honest, they're all at the mostly the same kind of record. The Panthers and Saints are tied. The Buccaneers are just one game behind, or at least a one loss behind the Atlanta Falcons. So realistically, that this is going to be an interesting season for the NFC South, specifically which of the horrible teams will be making the playoffs, because only one will make it. That's for sure. Only one of those teams will make the playoffs, and the Saints and Buccaneers and even Panthers now still have a chance at getting to the NFC South title. And I'm more leaning on Tampa being that wild card to make it. Now we have the New England Patriots, 3-7, just came off a win over the Chicago Bears in Chicago, and will take on the Rams on Sunday. Now, when it comes to the New England Patriots, I'm saying it just like the other teams, the bottom 10 teams. They're going to be a bottom 10 team, bottom 15 team, who knows at this point. But I'm going to say this honestly, the New England Patriots are a bit improved. And yeah, it's still Chicago who they beat, but still, I see some improvements with Drake May, and even when Jacoby Brissett is in the game. Like, Patriots, they really need a few more things before they're a contender at all. So, yeah, even though you got rid of Bill Belichick, it's still the same team, in my opinion. It's just a new guy, and they're fixing up. You got to build this new team, and to be honest, they're going to have a long ways to go before they can even reach the playoffs once again. Now, moving on to the Tennessee Titans, 2-7, going up against the Vikings on Sunday, and just came off a loss to the Los Angeles Chargers in LA. Now, when it comes to the Titans, Will Levis, not the guy. Mason Rudolph, not the guy. I'm honestly believing that they might be a top 10 team in the NFL draft, and when that happens, they might be picking Carson Beck or whoever is available other than Shedeur Sanders, because he's definitely not going to be available. In the end, what am I believing? I'm believing the Tennessee Titans will 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, be going after a new quarterback this offseason, because it just didn't work with Will Levis or Mason Rudolph. Now moving on to the New York Jets at 3-7, going up against the Colts on Sunday, and just took a massive L from the Arizona Cardinals. Now when it comes to Arizona, they are honestly on a high note. There's no way this team is impressing us this much, but they are. And Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, you're pretty decent, but honestly, you got rid of your head coach, who, honestly, in my opinion, was the best thing for that defense, because ever since he left, this defense has been going down and down in the dumps. And there is no way I believe that the New York Jets will improve on defense with Aaron Rodgers basically having everyone fired, just because he wants them gone and he wants his guys. Now on to the Dallas Cowboys, 3-6, are going up against the Texans on Monday Night Football, and just went off on a massive loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. This team is done. There is no way they're winning. We even saw Trey Lance get into the game at one point. Like, seriously, this team, they're just not a playoff contender this year. If somehow, some miracle, that they go ahead and win their remaining 8 games and make the playoffs, that is going to be shocking to me. How will the Cowboys do that? Because I expect the Cowboys to be not only a team that doesn't make the playoffs, but either a mid-tier team in the draft or a top 12, maybe 10 draft pick. Because at this point, this is what the Cowboys are looking at. Now, on to the Denver Broncos, 5-5, going up against the Falcons on Sunday, and just took an L from the Chiefs. They nearly did it. The Broncos nearly made my prediction correct in giving Kansas City their first loss, but the missed field goal, no good. Kansas City still win the game. So hopefully for all Denver fans, be hopeful because this team is pretty good with Bo Nix. Bo Nix is the quarterback of the future for the Broncos for this moment. Like, you never know. Maybe this is just a high rookie year and then he bottoms out next year. But from what I'm seeing, this Denver team has what it takes. Next draft, get some offensive weapons for Bo Nix. Get some defensive players on both the pass rush and the secondary for the Broncos. And then you got it settled. You got a good franchise that might make the playoffs. Not once, not twice, but many times more in the future. Now on to the Indianapolis Colts, 4-6, going up against the Jets in New Jersey on Sunday, and then losing to the Bills last week, and they lost in honestly one of the most horrific game for the Colts this season. I know it's only a 10-point difference, but still. And I'm thinking that the Colts are definitely not going to move on from Anthony Richardson. He's still the guy. I think just like Bryce Young, he's probably going to be put to the side. And hey, maybe you come back in the later weeks. Who knows? When you're ready. And then you never know. Maybe you'll improve and start winning games for your team. But for right now, I'm seeing the Indianapolis Colts as a top 15, top 12 draft pick team. And to be honest, this team needs a lot of help to not only keep their quarterback upright, but their defense needs some work too. Now on to the Los Angeles Rams at 4-5 are taking on the Patriots in Foxborough on Sunday and just took a massive L from the Miami Dolphins. So this team, I thought maybe contenders for the top spot of the NFC West, but no. Instead, they're down the bottom with Seattle. Even though I have them ranked below Seattle, I still think they're more or less tied. And honestly, this team could use some help. Obviously, they got some good offensive players. Their defense is needing some help. So that's mainly the reason why I say that they might have a little bit of a problem. But for right now, I'm seeing more or less a mid-tier team in the NFL season, but definitely not a playoff contender. Now, on to the Seattle Seahawks. And obviously, my Seattle Seahawks are 4-5, just came off a bye week, and will take on the 49ers in Santa Clara. Now, when it comes to the Seahawks, I have no hope that we would make the playoffs. Like, there are some hope, but that hope is very, very, very small. And I don't expect Seattle to make it. But if they somehow do, that would be impressive. But I'm more or less thinking they nearly make it. I think they're going to be right there, 9th, 8th, 10th. That's what they're going to be. But they're not going to be the top 7 teams to make the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm definitely believing that both Arizona and San Francisco are a lot better than Seattle right now. Even though we should be better than the Cardinals. And we should still be worse than the 49ers. I'm still having hope that the Seattle Seahawks will do something this year. Now, on to the Miami Dolphins. 3-6, going up against the Raiders at home on Sunday. And they just took a win on Monday Night Football against the LA Rams. Tua, pretty good game. Honestly, the only thing I worry about is why Tua is tackling with his head going forward. He literally got kicked in the head for trying to make a tackle. I think it was an interception or something. And he tried to make a tackle, got kicked in the head. This guy needs to learn to, if he puts anything forward, make sure it's the shoulder pad, not your head. Because, oh my God, you're going to get another concussion at this point. And that is something not only do Miami Dolphin fans don't want to see, every fan on the scale of the planet does not want to see the Miami Dolphins quarterback go down with another concussion, because we are going to get a panic attack about how you are literally going to end up having CTE to the level that we've never seen before if you keep doing this. So you've got to first properly tackle. But besides my rant on that, honestly, good job for Miami. They're doing well, even though they've been horrible throughout the year. Now, on to the Cleveland Browns, 2-7, going up against the Saints in New Orleans, and are just coming off a bye. Now, when it comes to the Cleveland Browns, I honestly expect the Cleveland Browns to do a little bit better than, honestly, they've been doing this season. They should get the win. Like, ever since Deshaun Watson came down with injury, that has been the game saver for Cleveland. Yes, they haven't been that successful either with Jameis Winston. They've been a whole lot better with Jameis Winston than they are with Deshaun Watson. So, honestly, keep it up, Cleveland. And you might not make the playoffs this year, but you'll definitely be improved for a potential season if it turns out that you can get out of that contract with Deshaun Watson. Otherwise, you might be struggling for a few more years. Now, on to the Atlanta Falcons, 6-4. They're going up against the Broncos on Sunday in Denver, and they just took an L from the New Orleans Saints. They are still leading the NFC South, but honestly, the other three teams, they're catching up. And this game is going to be pretty tough. Denver is a pretty tough team, and I expect that game to be pretty interesting. But other than that, I don't know what to think about the Falcons realistically. They have a good offense, they have a good defense, but at times, they just fail. They just fail at times, and that's what's worrying me a little bit. But I still think that the Atlanta Falcons, they're going to be pretty decent this year. Maybe a NFC South title, but you never know. Maybe one of the three other teams could come up and scoop that position away from Atlanta. Now, on to the Cincinnati Bengals, 4-6, and they are going up against the Chargers on Sunday night, and they took a big L from the Baltimore Ravens. Now, you're probably thinking, why do I have a 4-6 team all the way up in the top 16, let alone the top 15? Now, honestly, I don't even know either at times. I don't know what goes on in my head when it comes to putting the Bengals so high, but honestly, they're better than their record says, in my opinion, and that's why I have them up here. Even though it doesn't seem logical, to me it does seem logical. Their potential, and even sometimes their wins are making me put them this high. But if they lose to Los Angeles, that might be a whole other story. But for right now, I think they're okay at 14. Now, on to the Arizona Cardinals. And when it comes to the Cardinals, they are 6-4. They are coming into a bye. And they just took down the Aaron Rodgers New York Jets. And to be honest, this team, oh my gentle Jesus, how are they leading the NFC West is my question. How? Because honestly, Kyler Murray playing very well. James Conner doing very well in the backfield. Defense doing outstanding at times, especially against the Jets. But in the end, is this going to be where it comes to an end? Or will the Arizona Cardinals keep going and honestly maybe even win the NFC West? Now, on to the Houston Texans, and they are 6-4, going up against the Cowboys on Monday night, and they took a big L from the Detroit Lions. This is one of the top teams in the NFL, but how long are they going to be up there? Because yes, they're probably going to win the the AFC South, but in the end, is that really good enough? Because to be honest, this team, even though I expect them to do pretty well in the playoffs, might actually be a one and done this year. Unlike last year, which I believe they won a game and then they lost in the divisional round, something like that. But disregarding that, I think that the Houston Texans are going to be pretty good against Dallas, specifically how Dallas has been playing and how their injuries have done them. But in the end, the Houston Texans still have an opportunity, and that opportunity is big, but advancing into the playoffs is a whole other question. Now, on to the Los Angeles Chargers at 6-3. They are going up against the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday night, and they just took a big win against the Tennessee Titans. Now, when it comes down to the Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert, pretty well. And honestly, that offense is doing better than I expected. And honestly, they might be a wild card team because obviously, forget about them making the AFC West title. That is most likely Kansas City. But besides that, it's still a pretty good season for the LA Chargers, and I expect them to do even better the more they move into the season. And yeah, we might be seeing a Justin Herbert team lead them potentially all the way to the AFC Championship game. Now, kicking off the top 10, we got the Minnesota Vikings, 7-2, are going up against the Titans on Sunday, and just took down the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Now, when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings, they're doing pretty good. They're still a top, or at least the second team in the division when it comes to the NFC North. And they're the most likely candidates other than the Detroit Lions to win that division outright. But, in the end, it's still really up for grabs whether Sam Darnold has the ability to lead this team to the playoffs and maybe even a playoff berth that will then go to the NFC title game or even as far as the Super Bowl. You never know. Maybe this will be the Nick Foles of the Minnesota Vikings. You never know. But in the end, I think that the Minnesota Vikings will definitely do a decent job coming out at the end of the season, and they will most likely make the playoffs, whether it be as a division champion or otherwise. Now, moving on to the Washington Commanders, 7-3, going up against the Eagles on Thursday night, and just took a big L from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm saying this straight up, even though they lost to Steelers, they're still a good football team. They did their best. They only lost by 1 point, but still, losing is losing. So, in the end, I have the Washington Commanders. Maybe they not only win the NFC East, but maybe they even make it as far as the NFC Championship game. You never know. But for right now, I'm thinking that the Washington Commanders do a little bit better. Now, on to the San Francisco 49ers, and they're at 5-4. They're going up against my Seattle Seahawks, and they just took a big win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their home stadium. Now, when it comes to the 49ers, they have been an up and down team. They're only one game behind the Arizona Cardinals, and you're probably thinking, why do I have the 49ers ahead of the Cardinals? That's because the 49ers are a better team than the Cardinals. And honestly, San Francisco has had their bye, so I'm going to put the benefit of the doubt there. But right now, I'm thinking San Francisco is a better team than Arizona. And when it comes down to it, when they face off, I'm going to say the San Francisco 49ers will win that, just like they might win against my Seattle Seahawks and sweep us. Hopefully, for me, they don't, and we move them down to 5-5, and we go up to 5-5. You never know. But in the end, the San Francisco 49ers will be doing just about enough to potentially make the playoffs. Now, on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 7-2, are going up against the Ravens on Sunday, and they took a big win from Washington Commanders in their home stadium. Now, when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, doesn't matter. They're good either ways. And honestly, there's not much to say. They're good offense, good defense, and they're definitely a contender for that AFC North title. Them and Baltimore, basically. But for right now, this team is looking more like they will be winning that crown rather than the Baltimore Ravens. Now, moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are taking on the Commanders on Thursday night and just came off a big win over the Cowboys and are 7-2. Now, when it comes to the Eagles, honestly, they are expected to beat the Cowboys no matter what. And this team, honestly, pretty good. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Saquon Barkley. This team on offense is explosive, and they proved that against Dallas. But honestly, I think they're going to struggle throughout the rest of the year, even against the bad teams that they face. Because in the end, this is going to be very interesting in the NFC East because it's between Philly and Washington. Now on to the Green Bay Packers kicking off the top five, and we got them at 6-3. They're going up against the Bears in Chicago and coming off their bye week. Now, when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, honestly, pretty good as well. They're a team that will make the playoffs, and honestly, maybe even rival the Vikings and Lions for that division title. Still don't think they'll make it that far, but still, they'll be a good team, good enough to make the playoffs and good enough to win one game and then be knocked out in the divisional round. You never know what could happen. But for right now, this team is pretty good under Jordan Love. Now on to the Buffalo Bills at number 4, and they're at 8-2. They are going up against the Chiefs, who are still undefeated, and we also have them beating the Colts last week, 20-30. Now, when it comes to the Colts game, just impressive from Josh Allen and the offense of the Buffalo Bills. But when it comes to their next game against Kansas City, that will be the most interesting game of Kansas City's season because, yes, they might have won against Denver and nearly lost to them, but this is Buffalo. This is going to be a rivalry we will be seeing for years to come. Like, this rivalry between Allen and Mahomes is just huge, gigumongous. And honestly, I expect this rivalry to get even tougher this year and beyond. Now on to the Baltimore Ravens at 7-3. They're going up against the Steelers, and they just took down the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this game against the Steelers, this is going to be for the division, who leads it. And to be honest, I'm leaning more on Baltimore potentially, honestly, giving them the headache in Pittsburgh of suffering another loss and of potentially losing the division title. Still, both teams are making the playoffs most likely, whether it be division champion or otherwise. But in the end, the number 3 team, Baltimore Ravens, they are going to be insanely good for this upcoming game on Sunday. Now on to the Detroit Lions, and the Lions are at 8-1, going up against the Jaguars on Sunday, and they just took a win from the Houston Texans. This team is honestly, like I said, the second best team in the National Football League and the number 1 in the NFC. Now, when it comes to this team, the Detroit Lions have only 3 rivals, and that is Green Bay, Minnesota in that division. But in the end, it could go either way. You might be seeing the Lions start losing and losing and losing and losing. But for right now, this is going to be a very fun team to watch, not only this year, but for the next year and the next year after that. Now, at number 1, it's pretty obvious. It's the 9-0 undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, who will be taking on the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, and just came off a game-scaring win over the Denver Broncos. They nearly lost that, and Miami fans almost brought out the beers to start celebrating, but not this week. We might be seeing another team attempt an undefeated winning season, Super Bowl championship season. And to be honest, we've already had another one try it, and that was the Patriots. Will the Chiefs be like the Patriots, or will they be like the 72 or 73? I think it's 72 Dolphins. But in the end, Miami, you better hold your horses because this team might actually make it to be undefeated. But they are facing Buffalo, so you never know. Now, that was it for this video. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Tweet me any video ideas. Also, tell me down in the comments below who should be higher and who should be lower. Tell me down in the comments below. Now, like this video if you liked it, subscribe, and hit the notification if you want more videos. And I'll see you guys next time.